Right, so the next book is called African Presence in Early Europe by Ivan van Sertima. And this is from page 254. And it says, Moors, blackamoors, tawny Moors. Shakespeare uses the word Moor as a synonym for Negro. McRitchie's work on the Moors is one of the highlights of ancient and modern Britons. The author was convinced absolutely, totally, and completely that the Moors were beyond a shadow of a doubt black. And it says black people who had helped a vital role in the colonization of Western Europe and especially Britain. Okay? Page 256. Says, we see one of the black people in the person of a king of Alban of the 10th century. History knows him sometimes as Kenneth, sometimes as Dub, which Dub or Dub is German, I believe, for it means black. I know it means black. I'm not sure if it's German. It's one of the Germanic tribes languages. It's Old English, all right, and it means dark or black. And sometimes he is known as Niger, which Niger is a Latin word meaning black. The version of the Pictish Chronicle in the Irish Nennius calls him Sinead vel Dub, and St. Birkin styles him Dub of the three black divisions. It says, even before the period in which Kenneth the Niger of the three black divisions lived, more than a century earlier, in fact, Britain was subjected to violent and repeated assaults by the aggressive and expanding Danes, who, as McRitchie points out, were not a racially homogeneous people. The Denari are styled black Dinars or black Danes. In none of these terms is there any hint that the color of the hair is indicated. The Danes then were not of pure color; they were dub black. Okay, and this guy, by the way, is not. That statement was not by Ivan van Sertima. For you damn crackers talking about this is a Afrocentric, book. This is by an Edomite scholar. Okay. Now, page 258. There were certain islands in Britain where the Danes lingered for extended periods, and thus we have, for example, names like Leod, son to the Black Prince of Man, an island which the Danes dominated. The father of Leod seems to have been Olaf Svarti or Olav the Swarthy, who was the king of Man in the 13th century. And Swarthy, alright, means dark. It could be pointed out also as a side note that the first king of Norway, which the Normans, Norwegians, they were dark. The first king of Norway, which also appears to have had a black element, was styled Halfdan the Black. A prominent Viking of the 11th century was Thorhall, who was aboard the ship that carried the Vikings to the American coast. Thorhall was a huntsman in summer, and in winter the steward of Eric the Red. He was, it is said, a large man and strong, black, and like a giant, silent and foul-mouthed in his speech, and always egged on Eric to the worst. He was a bad Christian. This data is consistent with our knowledge of the African sea rovers, the Formorians, who had a stronghold on Tory Island off the northwest coast, and who came to be regarded as the sinister forces in Irish mythology. As McRitchie points out, I'm going to read this part. The black giants of the Welsh and other tales are hateful and horrid. The Welsh black oppressors and the Black Knight of Lancashire are fierce tyrants, the cruel foes of all white people. This is crazy, man. This is by an Edomite, McRitchie. It says, as McRitchie points out, the cruel foes of all white people, the black oppressors, the knights, the Welsh, all Negroes. At a later date, when the whites were gaining the ascendancy and the blacks were cut up into strangling bands, or lurking like the Black Moor of Galloway, in solitary dens and forest shades, out of which they issued by night, intent on murder and rapine. Even at this stage of their history, the blacks were the dreaded enemies of the whites. The days of the black oppression are so remote that their memory only lives in half-forgotten legends. It says not so the time when the black castles. So the castles, they were all made by Negroes, by the blacks. So those are black castles the Edomites today are dwelling in. The black castles were owned by another race, which are you Edomites. And their former masters were skulking among woods and caves. Okay? I think that's enough right there. Let's go to 228. Page 228. It says, when one turns to Scandinavia, the African presence is no less a reality. I will first explore the historic record, then the mythology, and lastly the archaeology and paleontology in order to draw some conclusions. Snorri Sturluson, the Icelandic poet, historian, and chieftain, recorded that in Scandinavia there are many tribes and many tongues. There are giants and dwarfs, there are black men, and many kinds of strange tribes. Thorhall the Hunter, a Viking, who was the mentor and closest companion of Eric the Red. Thorhall was described as a large man and strong, black, and like a giant. And there were other Norsemen mentioned in the sagas like Thorstein the Black. So the Vikings were all dark. They're black men. Sturluson also writes about Halfdan the Black, first king to unite Norway. Alright. And here's Tyr, an early woolly-haired Norse god who preceded Thor as a sky deity. Alright, you can't lie, man. The truth is coming out, You can keep deleting the YouTube accounts, but the truth is still coming out, man. You damn devils are getting exposed. Alright. Alright, let's go to page 240. Read the caption first. A woolly-haired Swedish warrior of the Viking age. So here's a Viking warrior, Swedish. Alright, clearly a Negro with woolly hair. Alright.